Hello everyone, I'm Robert Wenzel. Welcome to the 5th edition of Sunday Morning with Robert Wenzel. Today's topic is the truth will out, Venezuela, Google, and social justice warriors. Now what we're going to look at today is a phrase written by William Shakespeare in The Merchant of Venice. The phrase is, "At the length the truth will out." Now some people cut this phrase down and just say the truth will out, but I like "at the length" because it gives a sense that the truth is not necessarily going to come out anytime soon or immediately, that in the length, over time, the truth will come out. Now, the way Shakespeare used this and the way some other people use this or think of it, a lot of people in this day, is it's a little bit of a mystical sense in that if there's a murder, say, the facts that somehow the truth will out, the facts will come out, who did the murder will come out, and that type of thing. Economists, libertarians sometimes also use it in a very, very similar way. Leonard Read, for example, claimed the truth would out with regard to economic laws. And it was sort of a sense that, there are economic truths and that they will come out and the masses will get them eventually. I like to think of the term in a much more harsher version, and I use it that way. It's kind of a very, very severe warning. I use it when someone's telling me that they're advocating a economic policy or a social policy that I know is going up against reality and won't work. So my warning to them, if that policy is implemented, is the truth will out. You're going to learn how bad your policy is that is bucking up against reality. Let's use a simple example of this. Suppose there's a guy who climbs up it tells you he can fly by flapping his arms. And he goes to the top of a 15-floor building on the roof, and he's going to prove this to you. You can say to him, hey, the truth will out. You can't fly by just flapping your arms. But he jumps off, and sure enough, he lands on the pavement, splatters on the pavement. The truth is out. So that's one thing we got to learn about the truth is out. It can be harsh. It can be brutal when that truth comes out. There's nothing that says that the truth will out is a pretty situation when someone's trying to buck it and go against it. So that's that situation. To give you some other examples, the great economist Ludwig von Mises warned that socialism was impossible. This was when the Soviet Union was in full bloom. And what Mises meant by socialism being impossible is that what the socialists were promising as far as a socialist society, they would not be able to deliver on it with regard to the goods and the sort of utopian environment. And there's a economist by the name of Robert Heinlohr. He wrote a very popular book called The Worldly Philosophers about economists. It sold over 4 million shares. And he was a lefty socialist guy. And he mentioned that Mises went to Harvard and gave a couple of lectures and warned about this, and they sort of laughed at it. And in 1989, as the Soviet Union was collapsing, he wrote in the New Yorker, "Less than 75 years after it officially began, the contest between capitalism and socialism is over. Capitalism has won. Capitalism organizes the material affairs of humankind more satisfactorily than socialism." So you have to give Heinlohr a lot of credit for coming out and saying that, because it's in direct opposition to what he was advocating and thinking decades earlier. Now, what's more interesting is in 1990, he wrote again in the New Yorker a year later, and he talked about Harvard, the speeches of Mises at Harvard, and how they did not take Mises seriously. But he wrote, "It turns out, of course, that Mises was right about the impossibility of socialism." So there you have a situation where the truth is out. I mean, we've had examples with regard to socialism and communism with regard to the Soviet Union, Mao's Cultural Revolution in China. These are societal plans, economic plans that go up against reality. They're not going to work. The truth will out. They'll get smashed, but it does not have to be pretty. There were millions that died in the Soviet Union, and millions that died in Mao's China. Now, this brings me up to date, and we've got the situation in Venezuela where people are starving, where there's no food in the grocery stores, shelves are empty at all kinds of stores. And it's a case when you have socialism, you have price controls, and you have horrific inflation, and it's destroying the country. Yet, just a few decades ago, or less than that, Paul Krugman and Jeremy Corbyn were hailing the socialist planned economy of Venezuela. That was first launched by Hugo Chavez and now being run by Maduro. And the truth is coming out here. It's just a terrible, terrible situation. Which brings me up to date with regard to warnings and the truth will out. And what we can look at now is what happened at Google, where an employee was just fired. And he was fired for writing a paper questioning whether the minds of males and females are exactly the same and trying to understand why there are more male engineers. Of course, Google has a very social justice warrior mentality. So they didn't tolerate that and they fired the guy, which is really terrible because they sort of claim that they're very, very open and all that. So he's gone, but the social justice warrior environment continues. Now there's 72,000 employees at Google. So that's a lot of people to keep under control with this social justice environment attitude. The truth is going to come out. We don't know if this firing here of Damore is going to result in a change in the environment at Google, or whether it's going to take something else. But when you try and force an idea that all people are somehow the same with their mentality, with their brains and their functioning and in different classes and all that kind of stuff, and you have to have some kind of ratios based on the population and all that stuff, that just goes against reality. And the truth will out, and it's probably not going to be pretty. The stronger they are, however, and the more they grow and the more influence they get, because it's always about central planning, the more influence social justice warriors get with regard to government to sort of force these hiring quotas and the way people have to be treated and interpreting things in the most bizarre sense as far as hurt and that kind of thing, that bumps up against reality day in and day out, and the truth will out. That's going to end somehow, some way. It can't continue. There's no way that they're going to be able to force all of society like that. So the more they grow, the greater the explosion is going to be against that. So now the explosion itself can be very, very harsh, as I pointed out before. So there's no reason to not battle these people now before the truth comes out. The truth will out, but it could be very, very ugly when it does come out. If we can stop them earlier to stop the damage, there's nothing wrong with that either. Thanks for listening. I'll have a new show next week. And if you like this show, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Just click on it down on YouTube. If you like this particular video, click like on it, tweet it out, blog it out. If you would like to reach me, if you have questions about any videos or you have suggestions for a topic, email me at rw@epjmail.com. If you put in the web address area, not in the search engine, web address area, sunday.cloud, you'll get to this YouTube channel, Robert Wenzel, Sunday Morning with Robert Wenzel. epj.cloud in the address of your browser will get you to my main site, which is economicpolicyjournal.com. And of course, I have t-shirts, mugs, sweatshirts, and hoodies at cafepress.com/EPJ. See you next week.